Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of Council of the District of Sechelt. It being 7 o'clock on February 5th. Call the meeting to order. We have Councillor Bell is calling in on Zoom, so she's with us, and Councillor Shepherd is away today. Council, we have the land acknowledgement in the agenda, and we have a lengthy agenda, so if there are any amendments or concerns, please speak up. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adopt. Thank you, and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Without further ado, then, I will go to the Toastmasters proclamation, and it's in our agenda, so I will just proclaim February 2025 as Toastmasters Month in the District of Sechelt. Moving to business items, everything, we've got, as I said, a lengthy agenda. Everything is prepared by staff and okay with our management, I assume. So we'll go first to item 5.1, starting on page 6. And this is the farmer's market. And we have Ms. Smith. It's made the trek from the operations center. Please.
Well, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present. So in addition to the report in front of you tonight, I've just created a very brief presentation to outline the rationale for a one-year renewal of the Farmers Market Agreement. And I'll be happy to answer questions about the report and the presentation at the end. The Sechelt Farmers and Artisans Market has been a key part of Sechelt's economy and culture since 1993. And has operated in its current location on Cowrie Street since 2012. Given upcoming changes in the neighborhood where the market is located, it's important to reassess its location while allowing it to continue operations through to the end of 2025. The market is more than just a place to shop. It fosters local business, tourism, and food security. The market aligns with multiple policies in our OCP, our strategic plan, and our sustainability plan. And ultimately, supporting the market aligns with our own long-term goals for a vibrant and economically diverse Sechelt that welcomes tourism. According to a 2023 BC Farmers Market Economic Impact Study, the Sechelt market generates an estimated $3.2 million for our local economy. Many of the vendors that participate in the market see it as their primary source of income, and the market supports food security through BC Farmers Market Nutrition Coupon Program. Staff have engaged with community groups and neighbors, including business associations, transit authorities, and emergency services. And while support for the market is very strong, staff recognize the need to address concerns around safety, logistics, and accessibility. For example, we have asked that the market commits to ensuring a 6-meter fire lane is maintained at all times on Cowrie Street this year. Staff would also like to see a new fee structure that ensures fairness while keeping costs manageable for market organizers, as well as some small operational changes that will reduce staff time spent on setup and minimize emergency callouts due to electrical issues. So why a one-year agreement instead of the usual 3? Upcoming construction is set to begin as early as this year on Shorncliffe Avenue, and infrastructure changes at the highway could impact safety and accessibility of the market's current location. Providing a one-year agreement will allow the market extra time to explore long-term location options while still ensuring that the district is ready to welcome increased traffic to the area when needed. The goal is to keep the market in the downtown core, while ensuring that it has the infrastructure needed for success. We're hopeful the market will work with the municipality, as well as local groups such as the Sechelt Downtown Business Association and the Chamber of Commerce, to identify and develop a suitable alternative site for 2026 and beyond. So tonight, we're proposing a one-year renewal that will ensure a smooth transition for 2025 while allowing time for future planning. Staff would like to continue to work with the market organizers to ensure they have the support they need to be successful, and we'll aim to bring something back to council in summer or fall. Thank you for that. I'm
Great.
happy to answer any questions you might have about the report
Thank
or the
you.
presentation.
Great, thanks, Ms. Smith. Council, any questions? No? All clear? Councillor Inkster.
Obviously, we're looking at maybe additional years if in fact we don't identify a site, I'm assuming.
I would think what we're being offered, what is being recommended is 1 year, and during that time, we'll discuss that. I don't think the intention, correct me if, but there's no commitment beyond 1 year at this point, as per our agenda package. So in theory,
Yeah,
it could be the end, but I think everybody's at the table working.
okay. I hope,
Mhm.
I'm suggesting that we find a solution that
Yep.
works as well as this and not a solution that doesn't work as
Yep.
well as this. And, 'cause we all know that it brings crowds downtown and close to the businesses. I know that there's been other suggestions that the farmer's market go further into the business area, but, that could have its own problems, as many have heard before. The report identifies a issue with the construction. That's sort of the argument that we've heard more recently with the construction happening nearby, and that's why this has an effect. As I've indicated, I like it where it is, the market. And I think that the people that come from up higher that complain about it probably need to walk down some more to enjoy the market, because it has more benefits than minuses. The construction issue, though, as council may remember, one of the reasons why I was frustrated and/or not supportive of that development proposal was that I had asked staff to look into and/or encourage the developer to have an upper route, accessing maybe off our property up here through the parking lots up here. So I had indicated that a number of months ago. My concern was safety of our high school students and our lower school students if they use this lower half where there's a congestion issue. So that's why I had trouble with that development, other than I like the fact that it offered some rental and/or purchase accommodation in a dense location downtown. I like that idea, but I had concerns and I voiced them then about the access. And sure enough, the rationale for maybe encouraging the farmer's market to relocate or move is because of the congestion that I had identified previously and not supporting that development. So now I have two reasons to have been uncomfortable with why we weren't able to encourage access to the development site. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Councilor McLaughlin?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So I'm looking at the map that is on page 20 that shows Inlet Avenue, and I'm wondering, is Inlet Avenue going to be closed? Is that the idea, that it would be closed when the farmer's market is there? And a second question I have is I see it going partially up Mermaid. And I've been trying to think of places in the village area that could possibly have some potential. And I do note that Mermaid has a very wide road allowance. And I think maybe even from Ocean down to Mermaid could possibly be used in some way in the future. So I'm just also suggesting that if possible, maybe we could do a trial of some of the vendors along Mermaid, because
Councilor McLaughlin?
I don't
can
see
just say-
many other
Yeah,
alternatives.
I think we're going to get that conversation through the course of this year. Tonight is not, and I was a little bit curious to see, and you make a good point, that there's a lot of things in that that document that cause, or that page that cause me questions. But what's before us right now is just to discuss keeping the farmer's market in the position today. And I think I'm right that we'll probably have at least a couple of opportunities to discuss other possible locations. Would that be fair, Ms. Smith?
Yes, and this was a draft plan, the inlet one, but it's not, they're not actually moving there
Right.
at this time.
Right. Well, if I could just finish, please. I'm just concerned that we do need some possible options before we make a decision that it's only for 1 year. Because, I mean, there is a good argument, I think, to be made that for the limited number of hours that the market is run on a Saturday, that I find it hard to believe in a way that we can't manage to have them stay there. So in lieu of that, I really would like to find some way to find a very, very simple, similar kind of situation. And so that's why I'm suggesting Mermaid. But I'm just thinking if we could do a test possibly of some of the units there, it might help us all be convinced slightly that it might be a better possible move. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Councillor Bell, I see your virtual hand.
Hey, thank you. Yes, I am reading from the proposal that there is going to be staff support to do more market research on this. So I know that that will happen and it'll be done with due diligence. So looking forward to hearing more. There's no question that this market is a tremendous asset to the Sunshine Coast, but to the District of Sechelt. And some of the numbers we're seeing in the report in terms of the economic impact, I mean, we really need everything right now in the District of Sechelt to bring dollars in and to bring tourism in. And so I am completely supportive of doing everything we can to keep this going beyond a year. But certainly I would like to make a motion to support recommendations 1 and 2 in the report.
Very good. Thank you. And I see a second. Now, and some folks in the gallery are voting. Okay, so I know that the Farmers Market organization has a presentation for us. Perhaps I'll just thank you, Ms. Smith, and invite Mr. Byrne to come forward. Sorry, what am I doing? Yep, come on. John, Bell, please. You okay there? Yep, great. Javon, can you turn, make sure the microphone is great.
Oh,
Thank you, John.
I was about to do that. For the municipal record, John Bell, 5734 Mason Road in Sechelt. That's Jonbell. Also, I am the president of and chair of the board of the Sechelt Farmers and Artisans Market Association. That is our full title, and in this talk, I'm going to be just saying the market. We've been in Sechelt for 30 plus years, of which I've done about 30 of them as a vendor and as multiple times as president of the market. We have seen the market grow from a dozen vendors down at the end of Wharf Street, where it was far too windy, up to Raven's Cry, where we had scheduling issues, and to Cowrie Street, where we've been for the last 12 years. We have grown, and farmers markets have grown. We now are sort of, shall we say, an economic impact study saying that Sechelt has approximately 2 million in a financial impact. I was looking at CBC News last night, and Heather O'Brien from the BC Farmers Market Association, that's a provincial organization, was saying $200 million from farmers markets into British Columbia. So we are becoming a large player for things like food security, and with all the things going on in the world today, particularly with the US, it's become a little more important. One of the things we do is collect information, stats, and that is how many people come to the market. Well, we get a low first in the spring, or maybe last day, where we get maybe 1,400 people. And we max out at over 4,000 people on a Saturday morning and early afternoon. It's a lot of people come. And if you sort of average that to 2,500, and we have 30 markets, that's 60 to 75,000 shopper visits. It's huge. And a lot of those are spending money in our community. We have a lot of residents that come every market and buy their fruits, their vegetables. They bring their guests, they buy gifts. We get seniors. We're so close they can walk from Green Court. We're just around the corner. So it's really important. And the other thing is there are a lot of people in our community who are not as well off as others and who rely on the coupon program that comes out from the BC government. So there's a really, in this community, there is a real love of the farmer's market, and we've seen that in talking to people. And our location is an envy of many markets throughout the province. In early December, we had a meeting, the market had a meeting with Community Services regarding the 2025 letter of agreement. We've covered things like garbage and barriers and staff and things like electricity, just normal things, and all that was resolved. At that same virtual meeting, we wanted to discuss 2026. And we were informed that the position of Community Services was there would be no letter of agreement and that we would have to find a new location, public or private. Took us kind of off, kind of staggered us a bit, I must have to admit. And the reason for the objections were Planning Department, the Transit, and the Fire Department. We are all, Ms. Smith just mentioned the apartment complex going in, and that will be at the top where Shorncliffe and Cowrie meet. Well, we have had absolutely zero consultation with planning. No one has approached us at all and said, we need to discuss this. So we felt we've been sort of, a bit sidelined. And when we look at construction in Sechelt, is there a restriction around Green Court? Is there a restriction around the TELUS building? We feel it's just inappropriate. The other problem was complaints about transit. And we actually say, yep, we do have an impact on transit. And instead of being able to come down from the works yard and hanging a left at on Shorncliffe going on to Cowrie, they have to, on that Saturday morning, they have to go along Inlet and then Dolphin, Ocean, and then back onto Cowrie. That's 2.5 minutes, by the way. And that's not all the buses. The one I take frequently, the number 2 from West Sechelt, comes down onto Cowrie Street, waits, and then turns into the number 1. So there's zero impact on that number 1 bus. So I'm not quite sure where the reasoning is that we're causing significant delays for transit. We do accept that on the number 2 and the number 4, yep, we do cause some delays. I've talked to transit users because I'm on the bus all the time. Yeah, no one has a problem with it. They're going, yeah, we're used to that sort of thing. And one retired bus driver from Vancouver said to me, reroutes, that's just part of doing business. The other one was the fire department saying, and we comply with everything the fire department does. And as far as fireproof tenting and distances and access, there was now a suggestion that we needed another 3 meter width on Cowrie Street in case the ladder truck needs to come in, and there would be no parking on that one side. I would only ask that if this applies to us, it should apply to, the car show. When community services come before you tonight with the 25 agreement, and the market would ask you to please confirm that agreement. For the 2026 market season, we would ask that council direct planning to consult with the market and to create a situation permitting the market to remain on Cowrie Street and to provide safe egress for the construction materials on Saturday mornings. Governance is a matter of balancing. We would like to ask council to balance the economic and social impacts against minor delays for the buses and transit users. Thousands of local residents and off-coast tourists bring a lot of money, a lot of dollars to coastal community. And you have to weigh that, all of that economic impact weighed against minor delays to the public. In the event the market of being forced to move, we do not know at this point where we would go. We were rescued the last time we had to move from in front of Ravenscry. We were rescued by the District of Sechelt, who said, come to Cowrie Street, we'll close the street, and we'll offer you a place. We will have a market, and it will be in Sechelt or another location. But at this point in time, we don't know where it's going to be. It's going to have to be based on public access, things like washrooms, hard surfaces, and we really don't know where we would go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you. Okay, council, are there any questions of Mr. Bell? So we do have a motion in front of us. Not, I'll call a question. No, do you have a, Councilor Inkster?
Yeah,
Here.
I'm going to turn this on and pull it closer this time. A lot of what, I shouldn't say a lot of what, I should say that all of what John is saying is true and accurate based on their coming to Sechelt. I know that Mr. Machado, who's now at Gibson's, negotiated with the farmers market to bring them to downtown Sechelt. And I think it's been good for the downtown Sechelt. And I think without us identifying another location, when we are encouraging and or suggesting that we should only give them one more year, you have things in what's called your back pocket as a municipality. So I have some concerns about this 25. I don't know what to do with this motion. I know some council members want to vote for it and give them another year, but I have a problem with voting for it because it says we're giving them another year. I would rather have a motion, which I'm not sure where it would go, that would suggest we give them a number of years, and then we maybe look at some alternatives in the meantime if that's workable. But we're cornering them. I think that there's some synergies with their location in the downtown core. We all know this by the numbers of people that come to use the market that are also in other areas of the downtown core. Council's been down there. We've had our own booth there. The mayor's been there a number of times, including to open it with the ribbon. And we trip over people a lot of the time to get to that ribbon cutting. And we get a lot of visitors to our booth at the farmers market downtown. We know how many people are down there. When I forget that the farmers market is down there on a Saturday and I come downtown and I take my usual around Municipal Hall, which is how I came to the meeting tonight, I stop and I go down Torito and turn left, and I see people in front of me as I'm looking for a place in the mall to park. And there's way more people than a regular weekday going in front of me as they park, and they're going to the farmers market. So they're coming from the business district to go to our farmers market. They're not just appearing from a UFO and being dropped and walking. They're coming from the business districts. They've been shopping in downtown Sechelt, and they go to the farmers market, and they park in downtown Sechelt and they walk to the farmers market. So there's huge synergies of money of people coming to Sechelt on summer Saturdays. They could go anywhere else on the coast to other events or other things happening, but they come to Sechelt for our farmers market. And we're considering moving it to an unknown location. So this motion, if all I can get here tonight is us to approve 25, I will support that, but I will be bringing this up a lot in the next few months to see where we're at, because we don't have a place to put them. We don't have something in our back pocket. I do not support asking them to go look for something. Thanks.
Yeah. I think that's a fair comment that I certainly share, that this is just to give everybody a signal, hey, let's see if we can improve it. I happen to agree. I don't understand how construction, which traditionally is Monday to Friday, will impact the market on a Saturday, for example. But, you know, my vote in support of this is based on exactly what you said, Councillor Inkster. We're going to keep on top of this to make sure we've got, we make it even, hopefully even better, whatever that means, than it is at the present. I have Councillor McLaughlin and then Councillor Cobb.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Well, I live in the village area, and I've noticed that Cowrie Street, the commercial area, has lost a lot of businesses. In fact, at least a dozen empty shops along there. And I'm just concerned if we take the market, or say we're going to move the market, or even suggest that it won't be there next year, and we don't know where else it'll be devastating. It could just take all the business away from the downtown. And I think the idea of food security now is really critical. I'd like to see more food brought there if possible, and work on that in the next 2 years of my tenure here. But I just feel like Councillor Inkster said, to say yes, give them another year. But even, like I was suggesting, trial some options during this year, use this year for something, and try and come up with solutions with them. And, you know, so even change the motion to say that staff trial some working solutions with the market this year. Because it would be nice, I think, in some ways, if we have to move it, like you say, if we're not even concerned, we're not even convinced that we have to, like, I just don't even know why the second part's here. But if we have to move it, it would be nice to move it somewhere, as I suggest, up Mermaid, to link it in closer with Hackett Park, to link it in with the music activities going on there, and encourage people to walk around. Maybe it's taking some of the venue, some of the people selling their things there and moving them towards Inlet to see if there is a synergy there that works at all. Because it seems like it's all or nothing at this point. And I'm afraid if we don't actually have something at the end of the year coming up, that it will be nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. If we don't have something at the end of this year, then it comes back to council and we have to make a decision for 2026. What I see is that we are giving a commitment for 2025 for sure, that the market can continue with its existing setup. And I am supportive of that. I'm supportive of looking at other options, whether it's another street downtown, whether it's some form of Hackett Park, whether there's, you know, whatever it is. I am supportive of staff working with the farmers market on this. It's, you know, it's a conversation that's been had been having for 7 or 8 years now. In the time before I was elected, when I was with the Downtown Business Association, we were part of those conversations then too. And it doesn't mean that we can't keep doing it there. We just need to look and see if there is something better or different. I've got one more comment, and then I've actually got a question, hopefully for Mr. Bell. One thing that I am bothered by, though, is the amount of alarm that has come out of social media around this topic. There's been a lot of people calling us names, calling us incompetent, all over things that really this is the first time we've had a chance to talk about them. And I think that has been quite interesting, because when I see people calling me names and calling us incompetent, it doesn't really make me want to side with the people that are having the issue, just as a general issues management sort of thing. My question, though, is, has the farmers market explored working with the school district to maybe expand like into the bus turnaround area, or a little bit into the edge of the Seashelt Elementary property? Because maybe we don't go all the way into that intersection, or maybe we're redesigning that intersection in the next couple of years. But if there's an opportunity for the market to sort of pull back from that and go into the school district property instead, I'd be very supportive of it staying on Cowrie Street. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Councillor Toth. Absolutely, and that's precisely what we are doing right now. The area around the totem pole, which is adjacent to the school, we have been talking with the principal. And it looks like that's a go-ahead, that we can in fact use that area to expand and not go up to the parking lot towards Rockwood. So, I mean, we've looked at all these options of sort of like, what can we do if there is construction? So that is certainly one of them. If I may make a few comments about what we need for a location. You mentioned Hackett. Hackett has a grass surface and it's got thuya trees on them, large trees. If you put 75,000 people walking over that area for a year, you've got serious compaction and you probably will start losing trees. That is just kind of impossible. If we were to go to other streets where we'd be in front of people's homes, we'd be in front of people's businesses. And when that happens, you end up with sort of like 3 lines of people moving. You have people on the outside, on the inside, and through the middle. Makes it kind of difficult to sort of organize that.
John,
Whereas
Mr. Bell,
what we do
Can-
have,
Can I just?
yes,
I think let's stay with the motion before us, because we're getting into some of the details that are really
Thank you.
affirming kind of discussion. But I think it'd be better in a different forum than tonight. I think everybody's hearing that, the public is certainly hearing, I'm hearing, council is broadly supportive. And I think we'd, you can count on Councillor Inkster and others of us to keep pushing this, to have those discussions. But I'd like us to vote on the resolution before us. So I'd like to call the question, please. All right? We'll call it. All in favor? Opposed? Sorry, Councillor McLaughlin, you're opposed? Thank you. Okay, so one, and Councillor Bell, just to confirm you're in favor? Very good, thank you. Okay, thank you. So then, Council, I'd ask are there other motions you'd like to make at this point? About things you'd like to ask of staff, for example?
Yeah, thank you. Because when we talk about another year, it actually is October 2025. We know from being on this council for a term, how quickly October comes.
Yep.
That's right after UBCM. That's how quickly it comes. So I would like to make a motion to ask staff to come back to us with a report by July 1st with some options as to what they would propose as a relocation of the farmer's market. And that's my motion. I just want to speak
Okay.
to it when it's seconded.
Okay, second?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, I have to support the 2025 because I have to support that they're going to be there this year. But a number of the options that have been proposed, and I think they've just been thrown out there. Mermaid's a difficult street because there's the residential area that's difficult. The further area down has no curbing and it has potholes on each side. So even the ideas that are popped up here are, I don't think they're workable. So anyway, I would love for staff to come back to us July 1st with some options. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Because I'm happy to call that question. All in favor? Is your hand up, Councillor Bell, or you're voting? Okay. Thumbs up is a vote yes, if you can find that on your Zoom. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Byrne. Folks, we'll then move to item 5.2, which is on page 50 of our presentation. And this is before us a recommendation that the development permit be approved. Is there anything that staff would like to provide to us? Mr. Allen, I guess?
I'll be very brief. Thank you. This will be now the third time this has come your way and seeking a slightly different decision. Since last time, the applicant initially appealed to the BC Building Code Appeal Board, but that was dismissed because we do not yet have a building permit application. It was premature for that. We later, over the Christmas break, received a letter from his lawyer, to which we shared with ours. There's quite a debate on that. Regardless of a potential outcome, we recognize it's extremely time-consuming, extremely costly, and for the purpose of a non-vital feature, we do believe the covered staircase would benefit future residents for comfort and safety, but it's non-vital, not required. The guidelines can be subjective. When presented possibly in front of a judge in the future, it could be subjective, time-consuming. So we think it's time to move on with the development permit. We recommend issuance without the covered stairway and encourage the applicant to make a full building permit submission that meets the BC Building Code, some of which are concerns ahead of time are noted in the staff report and were noted in previous reports as well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I guess my only question through you to staff is there any plan to close the loop with the APC? Because this was something that came out of a recommendation from the APC originally. And I know that when we don't take their advice, sometimes they get a little upset about that. So just wondering if there's a strategy to close the loop with them. Thank you.
Yes, I'd be happy to follow through with the APC. We haven't had a meeting in a couple of months due to lack of agenda item season. We have some vacancies, so I'll be starting off with an APC refresher course on their role and how these things go, and specifically for the members that recall this application, be happy to talk them through it. Thank you.
Okay. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Rowe.
I'll move the recommendation as on page 50.
Very good. Thank you. And seconded. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Toth is opposed, and the motion carries. Okay, I think, and I've done all, yes. All right, so we can move to item 5.3. And this is, Mr. Nios is here. Great. For the camera, I guess, we'll let you get settled at the speaker's table. And we have your report in front of us. Mr. Nios, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Firstly, I apologize. It was longer than 2 months that it took to bring the report forward. I apologize for that. But when it comes to the STRs, complaints come from a variety of different methods, from the bylaw complaint form on the website to phone complaints to bylaw enforcement officers. The bylaw enforcement team received 32 formal complaints that were varied in their nature, with fines being issued to licensed operators and to operations that were not licensed. Complaints that were not valid did not make up part of this report. There were several licensed and unlicensed operators who did receive multiple bylaw fines. Moving forward, planning and development has developed a watch list for licensed SDRs that appear to be operating, shall we say, at the edges of compliance with the business license and zoning bylaws. And by this, I mean specifically unhosted, or what we suspect will be unhosted STRs. I can answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you. Sorry, oh no, I thought I saw Councillor Toth's hand. Okay. Can I, if I don't see anyone else, just looking at the complaints you've had, if I'm reading it correctly, we had 32 formal complaints, 6 of which were for licensed, 5 were non-licensed. So that means about 21 were for noise and wildlife attractions, roughly?
Roughly. Generally, the fines were issued for violations of the business license bylaw, operating without a business license and advertising without a business license. There were some other fines issued, yes, for unsecured garbage and for parking, actually. The business license bylaw and zoning bylaw require that the parking is on site, but in certain circumstances, we've had creep onto neighborhood streets, and this was verified by our bylaw enforcement staff and tracing it back to where the operations were occurring.
Right, thank you, yeah. Okay, so we're there, I guess my point is the impact from the noise, the parking, the garbage is in the tens.
It's small.
Yeah. Very
But that being said, practically all of the operators did comply voluntarily.
Yeah, no,
when-
this is,
when
that's,
approached
that,
by the bylaw enforcement officers.
I see, right, very good. I see Councillor Bell's hand and then Councillor Toth and Councillor Inkster. Councillor Bell, please. You're muted, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just, this is through the chair, and to staff possibly. I recall, I believe reading about the province having their system set up, their database. Is that the case? And if so, will that be a support for us in terms of this work?
Very good question. It's, I had the same based on what I saw.
Councillor Bell through the mayor. The province is setting it up even as we speak. Just this, I think it was yesterday, I attended a webinar on how their compliance model is shaping up. As we know, they have changed the Offence Act so that for offenses under the Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act, the fines can be as high as $50,000. What we are seeing now is the framework for how this compliance is looking. And to answer your question, it appears to be complementary. One of the things that is different in how we do things is we had set up the STR business license bylaw before the province had enacted the Short-Term Rental Accommodation Act. And the principal difference is we classify a short-term rental as 30 days, whereas the Act classifies it as 90 days. I think this is a conversation for synchronizing our regulations that needs to take place as we move along through this process. But planning and development staff are in tune and communicating with the province and listening to what they have to say. Presently, they do have a reporting system by which we can, when we do have bylaw violations and verified bylaw violations, that we can report them to the province through a portal, and they will require the listing platforms to remove these. So in effect, these violators will not be able to advertise on Airbnb or VRBO anymore.
Thanks. Just on that point,
Thank you.
and so council, so how is that going to work? Because you got a provincial enforcement agency presumably, or is this, they're going to give us guidelines and tell us to take care of it for them?
Well, Your Worship, they're intending to enforce these, how would I say, in concert with us. So we have the provincial regulations, which they will be engaging in enforcement of the Act. But we also have our business license and zoning bylaws, which we would enforce. So I guess you could say it's a two-pronged approach.
Right, but in practice, are we going to have another set of bylaw enforcement, provincial bylaw enforcement officers?
They have currently a director of enforcement and I think 3 employees. They are setting that up now. It is not set up yet.
Right.
So the principal bylaw enforcement still falls upon us.
On us. Thank you. Councillor Toth. Thanks.
Thank you. I suspect just from what we've heard over the years that there's a lot of folks that still aren't reporting or don't see a reason to report it, any issues with short-term rentals So for folks following along and for the media when they report out on this, what's the easiest way for a resident to submit a complaint against a short-term rental right now?
Honestly, I think the best way is to go onto our website and there is a complaint form they can fill out. And I know that people are reluctant to give their names and contact information, which is unfortunate because we can't ethically respond to anonymous complaints. We need to have a valid complaint and someone we can go back to with a report on how this unfolded. I encourage anyone who does have a problem with a short-term rental in their neighborhood to please fill us out. And they need to understand that the complaint is taken confidentially. We do not disclose the source of the complaint, and we adhere to that ardently. So I encourage people, there's no need to be silent about it if these things are impacting your lives in your neighborhood in a negative way. Please do go online and report.
Yeah. Or any infraction. Yeah.
Exactly, Your Honor.
Very good. Thank you.
Exactly,
Councillor
Your
Inkster?
Worship, yes.
I'm glad that in the last piece of that discussion, we touched on the anonymity and people, well, you know, people being known to be anonymous because it's confidential. Although with us, their name is attached. So in the views of the people, they're anonymous, I guess. Because that's really important. I'm surprised that the complaints weren't more, considering we have a lot of rules in place now. And we've heard a number of issues with Sandy Hook as an example. Council members have heard of complaints out there. I also saw that the notation formal complaint system. So obviously they have to do the paperwork to trigger the complaint. That's the formal nature of the comments that staff presented. I wanted to ask though, with the figures one of the disappointing things for me was large number of the complaints were based on people who don't have a business license. So the thing that frustrates me about that is a number of people followed the laws and procedure we set up, and still there's others who are trying to ignore the law, yet others are following them. So good on them. But I wanted to ask, with the complaints that you've received, is there a number of identified recidivists within those complaints?
There are several unlicensed operations that have had several complaints and several fines, and they have been brought into compliance in one instance, in Sandy Hook in particular. It was an unhosted short-term rental, unlicensed, and it did have quite a negative impact on the neighborhood. We issued 5 bylaw notices to the owner and operator, and they subsequently have switched to long-term rental. So there's now a long-term tenant in this place. So I think once the fines go out, Councillor, that people know we're serious. And that was one thing that planning and development wanted to be very clear on, is we felt we had very good marching orders, so to speak, from council on enforcement of the STR regulations. And we took it upon ourselves to be unwavering in that.
Great. Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I guess I could throw this question to you, but I sort of know the answer. How many STRs are allowed in Sechelt?
That's a very good question. To my knowledge, there is no cap on type 1s and type 2s. The
Thank you.
type 3s, the unhosted,
Yeah.
there was a cap, but they were subsequently prohibited under the provincial regulation.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I do get people telling me that, you know, why aren't STRs allowed in Sechelt anymore? It's like, well, actually, there's an unlimited number you can have. They just have to be hosted and et cetera. Yeah, thank you.
Very good. Right. Thank you, Mr. Nyos. We'll take that as presented. Mission accomplished. Council, we can then go to item 5.4, which is the liquor license amendment for the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 140. And with that, Mr. Hall appears on the screen. Good evening. Council, this is before us. You've read the report. Perhaps are there any questions of Mr. Hall? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I just had one question and it's probably dealt with, but I just wanted to confirm, if they increase the capacity to 100, are extra washrooms required? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
Good question. I would probably defer that to James as the building inspector, because that'll ultimately be a building code issue.
Yeah, he's coming to appear.
Excellent question. The building code changed in 2024, making it much more liberal in the washroom counts, and changed how we assign washrooms based on accessibility. And as a result of that, we were able to approve 100 as the occupant load based on their washroom count as applied through the 2024 BC Building Code.
Great. Very good answer. Okay, Counselor Toth. Okay,
Thank you. I think I caught part of the answer in the tail end of that statement for the question I haven't asked yet, which is that we are looking at increasing from 60 to 100. So my question was about the fire regulation loading capacity of that building. And I think I just heard that rule changes now allow for it to be a capacity of 100, whereas it was less before. I assume 60, but just to confirm. And then the follow-up question is, can the building actually hold 100 people? Or is that anticipating some spillage out onto the sidewalk and whatnot for events?
Right.
Thank you.
good. I'll look to you for the first and maybe you for both of them. The whole, it's over your shoulder.
To Councillor Toth, through your worship, any sidewalk count is not included in that. This is strictly the building. And there's a very simple rule of thumb when it comes to exiting. It's a 60-person rule. And as soon as you have more than 60 persons, you require 2 exits, which they have.
Very good. Okay. Counselor Inkster.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the washroom regs have certainly changed over the years from the amount of money that we had to spend to, I think you probably soon you'll just need a hole in the ground. Nevertheless, yeah, I guess progress. Nevertheless, I'm certainly in support of this. I'm surprised that they had 60 seats. I thought they would and should have more. You really can't make, especially with some of the issues that we've discussed with the Legion, you really can't make money and or donate money to the community with a 60-seat liquor primary turnover.
That sounds like you're moving
Yes,
items
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3 on
I am.
page 115.
I am.
And I
yeah.
see a seconder. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Great. Let's see what's next, Mr. Nios, maybe. Okay, then, thank you, Mr. Hall. We'll then go to item 5.5, and this is Counselor Rowe's motion. Counselor Rowe, maybe I'll turn it over to you.
Do we have anyone online watching? So I'll read it out if we don't, if we do. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll read the recommendation for the benefit of our viewers, and then just make a couple comments and happy to answer any questions. So it reads, whereas the District of Sechelt is experiencing a growing homelessness issue that disproportionately affects seniors and Indigenous individuals, both of whom are particularly vulnerable populations. And whereas there is a critical lack of affordable and supportive housing opportunities in the District of Sechelt, which is insufficient to meet the increasing needs of our community. And whereas the Hearth and Heart program endorsed under the NDP and BC Green Party agreement continues to receive funding support and aligns with the village model of housing, which promotes community-oriented and sustainable solutions to homelessness and housing insecurity. Therefore, be it resolved that the District of Sechelt directs staff to prepare and submit an expression of interest to the Ministry of Housing for the interest in the Heart and Hearth program outlining the urgent need for affordable and supportive housing in Sechelt with a particular focus on addressing homelessness among seniors and Indigenous individuals, and be it further resolved that the staff reach out to the Sechelt Nation to partner in this expression of interest and to explore recognizing the importance of a collaboration and shared leadership in addressing homelessness within the district of Sechelt. And be it resolved that this staff reach out to the town of Gibsons and the SCRD for letters to support to strengthen this expression of interest. Now, a couple of questions was why I identified those two populations. That's what happens. Yeah, I just did it. I swallowed a mint whole.
We'll
It's
take
small enough. It's not going to block trachea.
Heimlich.
Nope. So seniors, the percentage of homeless seniors that we have in our community is going up with every pit count. We have another pit count, which is a point in time homeless count coming up this spring. So that's a concern, which I unfortunately see in my daily work as well. The Indigenous piece, we have about a 40% of our homeless population is Indigenous, and the Indigenous population makes up about 8% of our population in general. So that is highly disproportionate. You know, they're what's the word I'm looking for? It'll come to me. Anyways, that's why I sort of singled out those two programs. And basically what this is very high level. The Heart and Hearth program is two components. So there's the Homeless Encampment Action Response Team, which is supposed to be a regional team, which Councillor Bell and I first heard about when we went to the BC Housing Conference right after we were elected. And it was supposed to be a regional team that supports a region, but we're not sure. I mean, we've never seen any part of it. So part of this is raising our exposure around, we need some attention too. The larger municipalities are getting all the attention from both of these programs. And I think that small communities, you know, it's got just as much, has just as much of an impact on our community, even though we're a smaller size. So that's one piece. The other piece is the Homeless Encampment Action Response Temporary Housing, which is the Hearth piece, which the village models are using to fund their programs. So particularly, you've heard us talk about the ones in Port Alberni and Duncan specifically, and Port Alberni is a smaller community. So, you know, we're on the Minister of Housing's radar right now. I think it's a good time to put something out there to say, hey, we actually read the agreement that you signed with the Greens. You guys have committed to this program. You've committed to the village model. This is something that the Sechelt Nation is interested in being involved with us. I've talked to Chief Joe about this. It hasn't been in front of their council, but certainly we've had lots of conversation around it. She is aware that I'm putting this forward and asking for them to partner in expression of interest. So this is nothing that we necessarily need to get into the weeds with, but there's funding here. The bottom line is there's funding here to support situations like we see in Sechelt, and I think we should put our name out there in the mix and follow up with some advocacy work around that. So that's my intention of bringing this forward.
Okay. Thank
tonight.
you. So that's a motion?
Oh, sorry. Yes. That was a long, you don't have to write that all in the motion.
No, well, we have it in front of us, so.
Yeah.
And seconded. A bit of administration. I see Hearth and Home.
Yeah,
and
that's an error.
So everything in here should read in your motion, Heart and Hearth.
Yeah,
Great.
I believe so.
Okay. Any questions, council? No. Yeah. Okay. No, I think it's one.
Well, it's two components of one program. Yeah.
The, can I ask, this is great, I'm supportive. What comes after this? We send in an expression of interest. Do we need to be,
Well, to be
in
clear,
Victoria, or-
I use that term lightly because it's not like they've asked for any.
Mhm.
But so I think this is the beginning of, hey, let's send this in and then follow up with the Minister of Housing.
so advocacy
Yeah.
to get,
And I hear back from the nation that with their recent meeting with the minister, he's well aware of what's our challenges in the district. So I think this is a road we should try and go down and see if we can get any traction.
right? Very good, thank you. Counselor Inkster?
Yeah, thanks. I'm always supportive of these initiatives put forward by Councillor Rowe and others on council in reference to housing and some of our challenges. The only thing I would ask is, because I'm supportive of this, is that should we add the importance of collaboration and shared leadership, second to last paragraph, in addressing homelessness within the district of Sechelt in the SWIA? That's what I would ask to add.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Great.
So we'll take that as a friendly amendment?
Yep.
Okay. Counselor Bell is still with us, so good. All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Counselor Rowe. And since you're swallowing mince whole, maybe I'll ask Counselor Toth to talk about the mandatory good neighbor agreement or not.
Thank you. Yeah, I can speak to this. It wasn't intended to arrive on the cover page of the agenda, but the deadline for AVICC motion submissions is this week. And this is sort of our last opportunity to approve something to submit. And so I'll read the motion and then, I can say a couple words, but whereas local governments across British Columbia are experiencing challenges related to supportive housing and shelter facilities, including concerns about community safety, property maintenance, and local accountability. And whereas some supportive housing and shelter operators do not consistently engage with local governments or community stakeholders to address concerns leading to negative impacts on the surrounding neighborhoods, therefore be it resolved that the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities and Union of BC Municipalities urge the province of British Columbia and BC Housing to require that all supportive housing and shelter operators enter into a good neighbor agreement with the local governments in which these facilities operate to ensure clear expectations regarding community impact mitigation, security measures, and ongoing engagement with local government and residents. And this obviously is a follow-up to the previous motion that we put forward for council and our little bit of advocacy work that we're working on there. We discovered that good neighbor agreements are not mandatory, and not all shelter operators have them in place, including here in Sechelt. And so, the city of Powell River recently took our first motion and modified it some and debated it and passed it. And within a couple of, honestly, I think it was within the week, they had LIFT reaching out to strike a committee specifically to look at homelessness around, and the issues around their facilities and around the community. So certainly operators can be promoted to do the right thing, to be involved and participatory, but there isn't any requirement for them to be involved and participatory. So the motion there is what we would like to submit to AVICC. And so I would make a motion that council endorses the attached motion and directs staff to submit it to AVICC for the annual conference for 2025.
Going on these, so whoever wants second and first, that's great. The only question I would ask is, should we send this to the MLA as well? I mean, and the previous one, to let, she seems very busy, but she should know that we're dealing with a lot of issues still. Thanks.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The first one.
That's- She receives both? Okay, great. Okay.
I just want to put it out there just for our listeners and YouTube watchers. Because I'm not sure everyone's familiar what a good neighbor agreement is, and it can mean different things in different contexts. So within this context, these three sort of items are paramount to me, and I think it kind of is a good umbrella. Why a municipality would you use or want a good neighbor agreement is to build community trust and reduce opposition to supportive housing projects. So actually get it out there before the project is built and start building that community connections. To ensure housing operators are accountable for how their facilities integrate into the neighborhood, and to create a structured way for community members to voice concerns without escalating conflicts. So those are sort of, for me, the driving force in putting this forward, because I think if the provincial government is putting tons of taxpayer dollars into all of these supportive housing units and shelters in municipalities, they need to make us have the ability to be a partner with them and have expectations and communication. So.
Very good. Thank you. Totally agree. Okay, council, if there's nothing else, so that's the motion as on our agenda pages with the direction that staff submit that to AVICC, and I guess flows to UBCM if AVICC, and that it be copied to our MLA. And if I might, a bunch of other people, maybe we'll put Rain City and BC Housing on that CC as well.
I wonder about sharing it with other municipalities before ABICC. Like,
Yeah.
Is that happening standardly when?
It's called campaigning. We want their vote at AVICC.
Yeah, we'll be there at the breakfast, putting little things on the tables.
I think we can handle that. Yeah. Okay, you're okay. Councillor Bell, have you already voting, or is that you've got a question?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with what Councillor Rowe has said, and I think it is important that we do try and educate or inform the other municipalities about this, because as you say, there are different understanding of what it is, and I think that would help our case, if you like, in terms of this advocacy piece. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, Councillor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I was just doing a little research into some of the policy with BC Housing, and I think they acknowledge and have made some legislative changes in terms of the Residential Tenancy Act and the kinds of flexibility they need in running their operations. In terms of, perhaps one example is having rules around guests that can come to the units and things that are not typical what you see in a residential tenancy agreement, but what do need to be here. So it might be worthwhile also highlighting some of these changes and highlighting maybe in a newsletter or some kind of thing on our website about what we're looking for and what the province has done lately, because I think, it's a learning exercise and we're moving towards improvement to do this type of thing better. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Very good. Okay, I'll call a question. I didn't do that, did I? All in favor? Carried. All right, thank you. All right, council, then we go to page 123, and Councillor Toth reading my mind, since this is your committee, sort of.
I'm actually not the liaison to this. Councillor Inkster is. So that's an error in the minutes. I know. And the minutes that went to the regional district were already corrected, so I thought I'd catch it here before we adopted it.
Okay, so we will, since they're not our minutes, we will just receive them with a note that it's, there's a small error. Is that okay? Motion, second, all in favor? Received. Then on page 127, the meeting of January 15th of council. Any concerns or corrections? Not. A motion to adopt, please. Thank you. Councillor Bell, second. Seconded. See scrolling, make sure. Nope. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we go to 7.3, which is on page 132, I believe. And Councilor Inkster, you were chair of this meeting, so is there anything that you, any concerns you have?
No, I was a little disappointed at the Coast Reporter newspaper article on the meeting, but you'd think I didn't say anything about climate change at that meeting based on the article. But nevertheless, I'm okay with everything else.
Well, at least our minutes are accurate, and YouTube is there for people who wish to hear you wax eloquently.
Yes.
Okay, entertain that as a motion to adopt and seconded, all in favor. Can I, since we're on that page, what is the timeline for applying for the dark sky community designation? Is that something that, oh, hi.
Thank you. I
Leslie?
can
Yeah,
speak to that through the chair.
feel like a mint?
I'm afraid I might swallow it. We've actually already started reviewing the application and we'll be delving into the application process with advice from Charles Ennis. We'll know more on the timeline in the coming weeks as we unpack
Yeah.
the application process, but it's underway. Thank you.
Cool, great, thank you. Okay, then we go to the minutes of January 22nd of the special committee of the whole meeting. Just to start with, this is before us for adoption, and then I have some comments on the various resolutions. So first of all, are the meeting minutes accurate, council? I did have one question. On page 135, we noted that the item 1, that the nation had just received funding. I stand to be corrected, but I don't believe they've actually received. It's been a commitment. Anybody? Page 135. Can anybody shed light on that?
I don't think it makes a material change to the business of the agenda, but no, I guess the nation had received a funding commitment for a new water reservoir project on the Sunshine Coast, would technically be more accurate.
Yeah. I think in terms of accuracy, that would be an appropriate amendment. Sir, no, anything?
I was just going to point out that it's probably accurate in that that's probably what I said. Right.
But not what you meant to say?
Again, let's add commitment in there and move on.
Very good, thank you. Okay. So with that amendment, motion to adopt the minutes, seconded, favor of adoption, opposed, carried. Okay, so then the various resolutions, recommendations from the committee of the whole are with us for endorsement, should we wish. And I guess I did, as has been said a couple of times, people, for those who are watching and on the internet, I want to just flag, and I guess even since the 22nd of January, things have changed. We've got tariffs maybe on, maybe off. And I feel strongly that we really need to make sure we get this right. So we have issues of affordability, which I spoke about at the committee of the whole, and also the potential impact of tariffs, both on potentially on revenues and on our expenses. You know, I think our economic situation is difficult for many. Councillor McLaughlin mentioned the empty storefronts on Cowrie, and I certainly believe there are, unfortunately, are more coming. So I think we need to challenge our assumptions again and look for ways to save money. And we've got to recognize the importance of adequately funding our infrastructure. We haven't been doing that. We've been better than most. I quickly acknowledge that, but we're still not putting enough away to handle our costs going forward. I've said previously, I'd like to see the 3% infrastructure go to 5%.
So are you doing a motion? Point of
I
order?
am, yes. And so, if you would prefer, I will say that I make a motion that we direct staff to provide options to reduce our spending on operational items by $2 million in 2025, along with the impact, if any, on service levels and identifying areas of risk from the possibility of tariffs, with the report to be provided not later than at our regular council meeting on March 19th. I think it's behooves us to take that kind of rigor in this current situation. So that is my motion. Look for a seconder. Okay, folks, so we will carry on with the various items. And I'll have more to say about them as we go through them. So we have item, let's see, the agenda, item 7.4, number 2, that is sewer user fee increase of 3.95% be included in the 5-year financial plan. Motion, second. Okay, thank you. Second, Councillor Bell.
Just from a point of order perspective, what was the motion that we already passed regarding 7.4? Did
To
we not
repeat the
already
minutes.
endorse these?
No, I was careful to say that was to adopt the minutes. So we have a motion for 7.4, item 2. All in favor? Carried. That a septage fee, item 3, that a septage fee increase of 6% be included in the 5-year financial plan. Moved, seconded. Discussion, all in favor? Carried. That the Connect the Coast contribution of 75,000 be referred to a regional budget discussion for 2026. Moved and seconded, all in favor. That the $100,000 consultant technical support budget be approved. Seconded. Okay, I'd just speak to that. In doing so, I know that there were savings of $41,000 in wages that weren't to be included because we're going in this direction. So the question I have is it really, are we really approving an additional 100? Or are we approving 59,000 extra net? Anybody, Mr. Douglas, are you able to?
Yeah, the documentation shows that there's $41,000 worth of savings coming to offset, some of
Right.
that, yes.
So this is essentially a net increase of 59,000.
Yeah, but the cost item is $100,000. So if you wanted to add another motion in there down further, something about the 41,000, but the cost item is 100,000.
Okay, well, yes, then I think we should be. I mean, the 100 is to save 41,000.
Say that again.
They go together, don't they? The 100,000, it will save 41,000.
Sure, you could do a two-part motion.
Right.
Okay.
I'm fine. I want to be clear that when we get to the end with the increase, that we are actually only increasing the taxation by 59. So not worried about being too procedural.
Yeah, that's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Todd.
I'm willing to put a motion forward to amend the recommendation to add with $41,000 to be funded from operational savings.
Okay. Is that okay? All right, all in favor as amended? Thank you. Item 6 of the various operating. It's not, okay. Okay, then we'll go with the motion, the wording. The operating expenses be approved of 10, 15, 15, and 3,500. Okay. Seconded, all in favor? And so 7, 8, 9, and 10 are all, I believe, well, and are all encapsulated in item 11. That be accurate? Everybody? So really, the key thing is that we're supporting $137,000 funding for community safety. And the recommendation is that it be funded from reserves mostly and a bit from taxation. Okay. Okay. So this probably is where I want to flag where, presentation that we have contemplates almost a I believe my arithmetic is close at least, a 17% increase in our spending from 2024 to 2025. We're funding it with things like this, that we're taking funding out of reserves which disappear as they're spent. And I just struggle with, one, using reserves, and two, with that level of increase in spending. I take no pleasure in this, folks, but that's an extraordinary increase. And I think we need to go back and challenge and ask our staff to challenge whether we should be funding it from the Community Safety Reserve, because if we need to spend it next year, we won't have that reserve. And later when we are in council reports, I'll talk about something, how that relates to BC Ferries. So, nobody else is able to increase our spending by 17% from one year to the next. And yes, there are some savings from last year that we're benefiting from, but they disappear. The spending doesn't, because these are recurring expenses. So that's why my initiative was to revisit everything. But in this specific one, I'm talking to the community safety. I supported and I continue to support the spending on the need for the community safety costs. I'd love to see us say we're going to get that funding and more paid for by the province. But this is systemic in how we're doing our budgets, that we're relying on probably one-time savings and reserves that have been accumulated to make this year look not quite as bad as, unfortunately, I think it is. So I will not be supporting the item 11. I don't think we should be using the $100,000 from our community safety reserve. Councillor Inkster.
Yeah, I guess the time has now come for some discussion of your approach. I had hoped, and I would encourage, maybe in future, that you bring these proposals at the beginning of the budget process forward.
In fact, I brought them last year.
Okay, last year's budget though? Okay, but at the beginning of this year's budget process, because every year is different. And throughout the process to discuss that, because it's difficult. I can say to a number of council members that other council members on this particular budget have done heavier lifting than myself because of meetings, availability. And I understand most of the council put a lot of work into this. So that's one of the issues I would have, but I would just suggest that always coming forward early on, before all the work is done on this budget, because that may be one of the issues with council members then supporting 11th hour motions. But I would ask through you to staff in reference, and I got some other questions, but in reference to your reserves comment, just to give the full picture. And I hope Mr. Douglas usually has this for me, is what the reserves are at the beginning of our budget process and what the reserves are at the end of the budget process. So what did we start the discussion with, and what we have now? And yeah, some of those are based on assumptions though that I've discussed as which helps us out, which is some interest, which keeps coming in every year. As long as we have reserves at a certain level, but if we
Well, and as long as interest rates stay high, which of course they haven't, they're coming down. I'm going to support Mr. Douglas and say that's a challenging question to ask if we'd given them a few days to get ready, because there are many different types of reserves, as you know. So
I'm fine with total reserves. I can ask later for individual because there's statutory.
yeah,
And then there's the reserves that we can actually pull money from. So if I can wait, but through you to Ms. Douglas, if he has that, because we have been able to put money aside in various forms. And yes, interest rates have gone down, but they haven't gone down to zero. So if we have
Okay.
it, I'd love to hear the
I'll give
figures. Thanks.
Mr. Douglas a minute to see if he can find that. I want to just emphasize, this is not an unusual approach to budgeting. I did flag it last year. I had expected it would be done. I believe I flagged it last fall as well as something that I was looking for. So I don't agree that it's an 11th hour task. Mr. Douglas, are you able to hazard a?
No, not, not on the fly.
Yeah.
So I can dig that up and provide that to
Right.
council.
Thank you. Councillor Toff.
Thank you. I don't recall us passing a motion last year to any of that. So without motions, staff really shouldn't be wandering off doing anything that runs counter to the motions that they do have. That being said, in the vein of what Councillor Inkster is saying, I would like to make a motion that staff provide a report on all statutory and non-statutory reserve balances from 2009 to 2024, including total transfers in and out each year, and that the report be provided by the end of Q2. Because I think 2009 would capture the economic issues of the 2008 financial problems. So give us a comparable. Thank you.
Okay, that's the second, Councillor Inkster. That we do. Counselor Bell, are you speaking to the motion? Okay. So it's year by year in and out for all reserves? So statutory operating, okay. All right, just so we're clear. Is that clear? No? Yeah. All right, all in favor? Carried. Okay, Counselor Bell, your hand is up, so you want to speak about something else?
Yes, through the chair. A question around your around taking the $100,000. Your concern around taking 100,000 from the community safety reserve. Is it specifically around taking it from the reserve, or is it the total that you are questioning or concerned about?
No, I'm very much in support of spending the 137,000. My concern is because the reserve is a one-time, it's the in the cookie jar. And when we spend it this year, if we're going to have to continue to spend money on community safety, we will have to tax for it next year. So we're kind of, fine, we all do this occasionally, but as a plan to make things affordable, we have to recognize in this year that we're actually probably committing to a recurring cost of 137,000. And for that, I don't personally like the using the savings to do that.
Okay.
Councilor Toth?
Thank you. I mean, one of those items, at least the communication strategy and stuff like that, is intended to be one-time funding. The usage of funds from reserve, we don't know that the downtown private security patrol is going to carry on past 2025. It might not. The province might step in with some assistance. The feds might step in with some assistance. So I think from a one-time continue the trial of the program type thing, I really have no issue with taking it from the community safety reserve. I mean, the time that we've been running the program so far, I think the funding has come from the COVID restart funds. So, we've been funding the whole thing from reserve all along, and we're talking about, the forward-looking safety programming for the district of Sechelt. And if after 2025, we have to make it permanent, then yeah, I will support $100,000 going on to taxation to cover it going forward.
Councilor Inkster?
Yeah. As we're talking about security in that particular piece, because there's many other items here, I would just ask why we haven't talked to Lehigh about the security that they provided a number of years ago for the downtown core. The downtown Sechelt security isn't new. It was done for a number of years, and Lehigh mostly paid for it. And I've suggested that before, and we haven't asked them again. Yeah, geez, I think it was a 10-year program.
Quite a while ago, I believe.
Well, I mean, I'm not that old, and I was on council. So, it was within this century. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, I think at the moment that's a possible way for people to come back later and say, hey, we don't need to spend it, but certainly our budget process in terms of the spending is, it was pretty rigorous, and I think the unique nature of what we're looking for is probably changed in the last 15 or 20 years. We're looking for the security to provide all kinds of almost real-time data and stuff that I would be surprised if Lehigh's security could handle that. But we can look.
There was a couple of them.
But as far as the budget.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of them. The guy, his name was Bill. I know, funny, right? But he provided a lot of data then. He was one of them. So there's a couple of them, and his name was Bill. And yeah, good data.
Okay. Take that as input.
Yeah.
Okay, so Councillor Toth's comment about wanting to take it from, being okay to take it from the reserves and and me saying I'm not is just what we're here for. It's a discussion, so there's no right or wrong. It's
There's,
Councillor Rowe.
just because I'm not sure if you were at this part of the meeting or not, but we had a long discussion. I mean, we are going to have an increase. We've never had a budget line for community safety before. So, you know, any money we spend is going to be, no matter where it comes from, more than was spent last year. But we had a long discussion on this topic. Thanks to Councillor Bell and Shepherd, who brought forward some things. And one of the things we talked about with the security patrol was relooking at narrowing the focus on sort of some target areas, coming up with some definite things that, some metrics that we can measure. And I mean, to Councillor Toss' point, we are still in a trial period for this. And I think if we do another year and collect some hard data, then, you know, if we do go to have to tax for that service, it's easier. It's, you know, we have something we can take to the community. So I, again, don't know if that this is a forever thing. So generally speaking, in theory, philosophically speaking, I agree that if something's costing us money, it should be costing us money. But I think there's also something to be said for piloting things and trying to limit the impact to the taxpayer.
Yep.
Well, we can.
And listen, and thank you. I agree with that statement. This just happens to be the one that gives me the opportunity to talk about my bigger concern, which is that our spending, the proposed spending in the budget is up by about 17%, I believe, and that's what concerns me. And how we're going about funding it flows from that. So this is not a discussion meant to be isolated or targeted on community safety. So, Councillor, we're being asked to endorse 7, 8, 9, and 10, which includes some reports as well as budgets, all in 11. So I'll entertain a motion for 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 together. Okay, yeah, so thank you. Seconded. Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Carried. And item 12, that the RCMP parking lot be referred to the 2026 budget process. Thank you. Great. Yep, thank you. Second. All in favor? Carried. And the 2025 capital plan. So not sure, Councillor Inkster, have you been able, this is references a document from December 18th. So the whole capital plan, we're endorsing it with the exception of 3 items. Yeah, motion, second. Okay. I would like to have seen something more wholesome. You know, our special committee was held on Wednesday morning. Councillor Inkster, you weren't able to be there, and generally the public wasn't. I'd just like to see us be more open about, you know, what we are proposing to spend. It's a lot of money, and again, it goes to affordability at a difficult time. It also, I hasten to, or hesitate, fear that some of our costs for capital projects could be quite, that's a real concern. Yes, please.
Government is no stranger to cost overruns, tariffs or not. We will take them as they come. If projects have to be deferred or delayed or canceled or reconsidered as, you know, for top-up funding in 2026, then we'll get there when we get there. I mean, the whole point of the capital plan, approving something in the capital plan and then the next resolution there is so that staff can get going on it to try and get good pricing before we have, economic knock-ons or whatever might occur. On the other hand, for anything that we might have to fund from, MFA financing, yeah, maybe the interest rates will come down and it'll be cheaper for us to do it. So, yeah, I'm supportive of us moving forward as is where is for the time being. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Inkster.
Yeah, I'm not, I know you referenced tariffs, seems to be the big discussion point lately in Bugaboo. I don't know what you mean by the costs of raw materials. I mean, I'm assuming most of the raw materials that we need for projects are sourced from in Canada. And that then means that tariffs are not applicable. So I'm not sure what you mean. Unless we're buying things from the US, and that's probably just for government putting tariffs on particular things like maybe computers. That's computer hardwares and programs. So that may be where there may be an effect, but I'm not sure what else you mean. Thanks.
I'm not either. That's why I was looking for some clarity on that. But we operate at the will of council, so reasons I've said I will not be, not that I'm not supportive of the general capital plan, but I think that we would benefit a great deal by further updates and further itemization of further visibility on the things that we're approving here. Because I think I'm right, this is an approval from here. We're essentially approving the budget. So, okay, so we have item 14. If you like a motion, Councillor Toth, seconded Councillor Rowe, all in favor? And I'm opposed. And that early approval for capital projects approved in recommendation 14 from this meeting? Oh, yes, I see. Be granted. Second. Okay. All in favor? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not really.
He's trying to drop in.
No.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I wasn't sure where you were in the process. Yeah, I'm over too. Yeah.
So, all in favor? I'm in favor of the spirit, so I'll vote for that, but to get on with things when I say the spirit. Councillor Toth.
Thank you. I actually am kind of curious about impacts tariffs may or may not have on us. So I'd like to make a follow-up motion, I guess, that staff provide an update at a future committee of the whole on any potential impacts tariffs may have on District of Sechelt operational and capital plans. Thanks.
Thank you. Second. Yes. Thank you, Councillor Bell. All right. Discussion?
I'm not sure I want to staff spending time on something I can't even wrap my head around that's attached to Donald Trump. To be honest, at this point, I would rather revisit it 45 days from now after this 30-day. I don't think we need to deal with that today.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, I think the intent by Councillor Toth is just to give us a clearer picture than just throwing words out into the air. My question, though, through you to staff is if we in fact say that we need more information on this and any other things, what goes on in Donald Trump's head. I mean, I don't know if we have any qualified staff. Maybe the tariffs is a confusing one, but what are we asking staff to do? I would ask through you in this case, what that means for staff. Once in a while, I think we need to be able to ask staff, what does this mean to you? How much work is this? Can you find out the information? Do you have to go to your financial association and get some information? Is this week's Economist helpful? I mean, when we ask them to do this, where are they going to get the information, and is it going to be helpful and accurate to us? Because they may not know either. So that's what I'm asking. Send them on.
Did you put going somewhere with this, did you put a time frame on?
No.
So that could be in 45 days, could be anytime.
If I may,
Mhm.
and my intention behind this, just staff provide an update. I'm not looking for a 50 or 100-page report. I'm just looking for an opportunity for, maybe finance staff and engineering to give it a couple, a
Mhm.
couple minutes of thought. And we talk about it at a committee of the whole. I don't think the council meeting at 8:45 at night is the time and place to do it, but, maybe staff have already been thinking about what impact tariffs might have on our capital plans. Wakefield Lift Station, for example, like pumps, I think a lot of pumps do come out of the States, right? Electrical equipment comes out of Canada, comes out of Mexico, might not be impacted. So just high level, that's all I'm looking for, like a 5-minute conversation or less. Like, I'm not looking for 100 pages.
We won't be the only ones doing this as well, so I think we'll be able to benefit from that. But your point's well taken. Certainly, I'm not looking to burden staff with weeks of work. But budgets are, part of the budget process is to make sure we feel it's prudent to pursue all these different things that we are proposing. And if there's something in there that's going to throw a wrench in the works, we'll know it pretty easily. So it's not granular, it's more big picture. If there's a bunch of pumps that are going to come out of the US and they're going to cost 25% more, then we need to be aware of that early, because we might redirect our capital project as a result. Councilor McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Could we ask staff if they think that they can possibly come up with something detailed on tariffs? Because to me, it's very nebulous situation. It would be a lot of work. It just doesn't seem to me to be a really appropriate request.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think we have to ask staff that. That's why I say I would be amazed if somebody, the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, the, whatever it's called, the Canadian Taxpayers Organization will provide a lot of in the coming weeks. So I'm interested in how this might apply to us specifically. So is it pumps? Is it something else? So I'm supportive of Councillor Toth's motion.
I'm going to ask this a different way then, just to see if we should be even doing this. First of all, we haven't asked staff. I mean, we could ask planning to do a business analysis out of the blue of the downtown core because of all the concerns that you have in the downtown core. Or all of a sudden out of the blue, ask engineering to do what they had to do with the asset analysis that the federal government asked for 16 years ago. So out of the blue. So what I'm asking through you is to ask staff what all of a sudden we're asking to analyze tariffs. We're asking our finance people to look at international tariffs and do an analysis.
I don't think that's Councillor Toth's motion. It's the impact of tariffs on our projects.
Tariffs.
No, not tariffs. It's the impact on the costs of our projects. So whether it's tariffs or indeed if it's inflation or something, other changes. So, Councillor Toth, do you want to leave this for 2 weeks? Because there is certainly, clearly there's some uncertainty on maybe we can craft something that is a bit more.
Well, we have the motion on the floor, and I'd be willing to move a motion to defer it to the next council meeting
Sure.
if that,
That's-
I think that's not
Yeah.
debatable.
Right. Okay. So that's, moves and seconded. Okay, motion to defer. No discussion, there's no discussion on that type of a motion. We have to vote. Yeah. So all in favor of deferring? Carried. Okay, thank you, Councillor Toth.
Please no staff.
Yes, that's why. Okay, so that brings us to the end of item 7 of our agenda. Council reports. The SCRD representatives to my right.
Sure, I'll go first and then Counselor Inkster can fill in, Drexler can fill in. So much going on in the last couple of weeks. I've attended the federal funding announcement at the House of Clans for the nation and the SCRD, officially being awarded $117 million in change in drought mitigation funding for the building of reservoirs. There's so much work left to go on this. But it's great to finally have an answer about the funding and the grant application that we put in. We've also wrapped up budget deliberations at the SCRD. The percentages reported in the newspaper were a bit misleading because it was talking about total requisitions without contemplation of commercial, industrial, residential, that sort of thing. But what counts for most people, the residential rate for 2025, the SCRD portion will be increasing by $3.27 per $100,000 of assessed value. So I think that's about $33 for the average home in the district of Sechelt, $32 somewhere in there. And then finally, I know the announcement is out at the Coast Reporter. They've got an article about it, but the board did unanimously approve Tina Perot as the new CAO for the SCRD. So she's been with the organization in a variety of capacities since 2008. She was the acting and then interim CAO since sort of early summer. But we did want to make sure that we went through a robust competition to know that we had the best person for the role. And just as a highlight of that process, it's the first time I've gone through it's the first time I've gone through a CAO recruitment process, but it's the first time I've actually gone through a HR process of that scale, scope. We ended up with over 40 applicants to the posting, some from as far away as Alberta and the USA. And yeah, we ended up doing 2 rounds of interviews. So 1 round with just sort of the hiring committee, and then the second round was the entire board. And yeah, it was an interesting process, and congratulations to Tina, and looking forward to continuing working with her now that she is officially permanently in the role. So that's really all I have for tonight. Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Yes, I echo that. Congratulations to Ms. Perot. Counselor Inkster, something to add? Color commentary?
Yeah, maybe. The announcement, the funding announcement was a good day, a good event. It's good to see some commitment from the federal level of government, although I know the province is involved a little bit as well to help us with our water needs. And as they always said, indicated, although they did a lot of the heavy lifting on that they appreciated the local government support that they received. And that was really important for them to show a united front in their application, and that the local governments in the Sunshine Coast can work together. And the regional district was working very closely throughout that process and committed and steadfast in their support and or technical support of that project. So it's good to see, because we need a reservoir as well as the wells that we're doing. The CEO search and decision, the committee did a good job, and the materials that they generated and the process they followed should be one that other governments should, I think, utilize, because it came out in the end to excellent process of final 3 people and the unanimous choice based on the questions and the fact that that individual had been in the role for a number of months and done quite well within that role. So it was an easier decision for us. Budget's finished. Sechelt's quite low compared to many of the other jurisdictions, as has been mentioned. But as we all know, that also has to do with the particular parts of the SCRD that we pay into and are part of. So, but it was good to see that it was quite low for us this time. But it's been a busy couple of weeks at the regional district, and that was good. Glad to see council in a number of the regional district events. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I guess why don't we do a virtual loop? We'll start with Councillor Bell and then come over to Councillor Rowe and down here. Councillor Bell.
Hey, I'll keep it quick. Certainly it was a very exciting day on the 16th with the announcement for the reservoir, and certainly do understand there's a lot of work ahead of us, but it was encouraging and hopeful to get that announcement and to see the collaboration that happened between the partners. And I think that is, to me, what I'm hearing from certainly the feds and the provincial government, that is a piece that is going to be something that's going to be noted more, that's going to be recognized in any funding announcements, is that whole collaboration piece. So well done on to the partners, SCRD, the nation, and congratulations. Very quickly, Thriving Communities, which I attended. I won't say a lot about them right now. It's the anti-poverty group, but we are going to be moving more into some social determinants of health. Number of sectors. There's at least 20 to 20 people that sit on that committee. I'll say a little bit more at another time. The only thing I wanted to mention is that there is going to be a point in time, a homeless count coming up that is going to be done, I believe, this month. So we should, Chris Hergensheimer is taking the lead on that. And so we'll be hearing more information on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Rowe?
Yeah, I was on that, the SHAC meeting, which is the Homeless Advisory Committee with Councillor Bell. And that was at the reservoir announcement as well. And it was very cool to go on a bus tour and actually see one of the site itself. That was very cool. Appreciated that. And other than that, just budget. And I've been sick. So just coming to the other side of that. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
Thank you through the chair. I just want to mention and congratulate the Sechelt Nation and the province of BC for renewing their agreement to work together, and how we were discussing as well how that could impact land use and the future going 20, maybe 40 years. We'll see. So that's wonderful that we have that in place. And I was just going to comment a little bit too on the snow. And you haven't noticed. I had somebody from Sandy Hook point out to me that there's it's very difficult in Sandy Hook in certain parts. And she just highlighted that there might be some newer fire hydrants in place, but they're not very visible with this much snow. So I guess it's just kind of highlighting some of the issues that we don't normally really have, but maybe there's something we can do to help identify those hydrants so that people know, because we don't need another disaster with water that we can avoid. So I thought I'd just bring that up because she did mention that. But other than that, just waiting for the snow to go, asking people to drive slowly, and to shovel for your neighbors, and maybe shovel a little bit around your decks, et cetera, because there's a lot of snow on the roofs, and I'm just waiting for mine to drop. And I don't know if my old house is designed for these loads, but it's really something. So I'll be glad when it's kind of gone, but it's fun to watch. The birds love it, and the kids love it. So thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Inkster?
When we were in Kitimat, we just had sticks on the top of hydrants, so you can find them. So, but this is so rare, the snow that we've received, as we all know. I just wanted to just jump off of that to thank our crews for all their work.
Beat me to it.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Stop letting me go first on these.
No.
You got it too. Yeah. I want to thank our crews because I know they worked a lot. And work, you always get those complaints, and we do hear about Sandy Hook, but there's a lot of roads out there. It's very steep, so we're getting there, and I know that crews are getting there, and I know that staff have spoken to crews getting there as soon as they can, but there's a lot of roads internally and emergency roads, main arterial, school bus routes, even though the school buses weren't running. So we have our priorities, right? I don't know if Mr. Yates will speak to it tonight. I'd love to encourage him to speak to that issue because it's a lot of work for our crews, and I know that they were they were tired, but I think they did a good job. I noticed that they had to do single lanes and then go back and widen them just because of there's so much snow, 1 to 2 feet that was out there. So I just wanted to recognize the crews. I know others will, as has been indicated, but they did a good job. Maybe Mr. Yates will speak to it. Thanks. On to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, no.
Counselor Todd.
Thanks. Yeah, so I attended a library board meeting. Nothing particular to report from that one. Their AGM is coming up. And so if there's anybody knows that might be interested in joining the library board, I know that they have at least one vacancy for sure. But of course, having too many people interested is never a bad thing. Attended the final home game for the Tsunami on Sunday. So the whole board attended that. Councillor Rowe forgot to mention it, but she was our host for the evening. And yeah, so we were there to celebrate with our
won.
new CAO, and even better, they won
Yeah.
4-2. Thank you, Councillor Inkster, for taking that from me.
Yeah.
I think they got a couple more road games still to go, but this was it for their home stretch. And then, yeah, with the snow, I also want to say thanks to the Public Works team. We're really not equipped for the amount of snow that we got. The complaints, it's unfortunate that we get the complaints. People are always going to be unhappy when the snow falls and we're not there instantly to clear it. So I know that it's a regular sore spot, but I am impressed with how much our staff are doing. I've been impressed as well with how much community members have been doing. I think, the first plow that came down my street was a District of Sechelt truck, but I think the second plowing was just some guy that had a snowcat with a blade on it, and he was just bombing around burning fuel, plowing things, which, no, it wasn't. It wasn't my neighbor. I thought it might have been, but it wasn't. So the community comes together where they can when things like this happen. And which is good, because I know, like, all up and down the coast, there's been access issues for BC Hydro to get to a lot of the downed power lines. Ender Harbor only just got their power back on this afternoon, so it's basically been out for 2 days. And part of that was, like, they literally had to chain up graders to be able to clear the roads for the highway crew, for the hydro crews to come in and put lines back up. And sometimes they would put up lines and they'd move on to another section, and then another tree would fail and take out the area where they had just completed work. So speaks a little bit to the ongoing maintenance issues along the highway, but that's a problem for another day. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Yates, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, thank you to those members of council who recognize staff. Yes, the crew is quite tired. They've been working literally around the clock, day and night, and up at 2, 3 in the morning for their start and running all day long, well into the night. They were out again as I was driving in here today to finish things up. Abandoned cars, cars parked all over the place has been another problem. One of the reasons why we couldn't get to a number of streets. So if people can avoid doing that in the future, it'd be helpful. But by and large, it was very, very successful, and they've done a super job.
Yep, thank you. I certainly agree, and we've said Public Works, but I think we certainly want to acknowledge Parks and the Water Resource Center people, and I say BC Hydro and all the other groups that come out in the middle of the night to get the power back on. Okay, well, for me, a few things to let everybody know about. Last spring, Rotary in an auction said, hey, you should bid on a full-page ad in the Coast Reporter. And I said, well, will you outbid me? And they said, well, probably. Anyways, I ended up having to pay for a full-page ad. So page 2 of last week's paper is something celebrating volunteers. I thought it was appropriate to just to remind people of some of the volunteer groups that are a big part of what makes Sechelt so great. And you talked about the library, for example. They didn't have space. If I'd paid for 10 pages, I think we would have filled all 10 pages. Other things, community safety, Councillor Bell, has she left? Sorry, that's, okay, well, Councillor Bell, I know joined virtually. I went to the Save Our Streets meeting on January 23rd and connected with several mayors. and other members of the business community. And, you know, everybody's frustrated with the downloading that's happening in terms of the reaction that we have to take to the challenges of people with addictions and health issues and the bad guys. It's interesting, there's a really strong support for and a consensus that both the feds and the province have to do more, but especially in terms of secure facilities to help those with addictions and mental health issues. I think that was the takeaway, that there's really a broad, appears to be a broad support for doing something that will help these people and that will also help the people that are currently being impacted negatively in our community. On that, there's been several people that have reached out to me over the last few weeks. It's been quiet in the social media, I think, about crime, but I know there was a big one. I won't say who, but one of the merchants lost a lot of stuff just last week. And, you know, that's just not acceptable. And that contributes to the tough business community, business environment that we have. Council knows that I sent a letter to the chair and CEO of BC Ferries, and I had a meeting with them virtually with Councillor Rowe joining me. You know, it's ironic I'm bringing that up because, of course, they've canceled much of the sailing, one vessel sailing to Victoria the last couple of days, and Bowen Island is on water taxi. It points to a systemic issue that's going to be very challenging and very expensive to fix. But Bowen is perhaps the only one that compares to us in that they don't really have an option other than the ferry. The hard fact is that, you know, there hasn't been sufficient investment over the last several years, and the only way to fix that is with new vessels. But unfortunately, BC Ferries' plan at the moment is we won't get a new vessel for 10 years, I think, about 10 years. And to me, that's not acceptable. So I will be, again, offering them some ideas to think about. I think it's fair to say, Councillor Rowe, when I tried, they weren't terribly receptive to what I was offering at the time, but we'll keep going in hopes of getting some reliability for us. And then finally, on a happier note, I enjoyed several celebrations last week to celebrate Lunar New Year. With my background spending time in Asia, it's always been a big part of my family and my friends' life. And we're lucky here to have such great ethnic cult communities that do come together to celebrate it. So I'll end by wishing everyone the best in the Year of the Snake and Konge Fat Choi. The Year of the Snake, 1953. Oh no, you're not that old. 65? Okay, Council, we have no correspondence and no items for release. So unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And seconded, all in favor. We're adjourned.